Okay. This was this morning's learning to draw thing, and I'm deliberately doing it in the wax crayons, the kids' crayons, and partly to show that to get away from the what's the name I just cleaned in with this. Get away from the charcoal complications. Somebody said this morning about charcoal being a nightmare to work with. I'm not sure what that means, and I've asked him to tell me. And if you're watching, Vic, let me know, and I'll try and talk through it with you. But anyway, so that was partly the reason why I did it in the kids' crayons. Partly the reason was I got no paper for charcoal. So you know what I mean. When the double drives and all that needs must, and but the thing is that I don't really. I think everything's drawing, right? By that I mean it's always about making marks to capture what you see, driven by what you feel. So it doesn't matter whether it's kids' crayons, whether it's oils, whether it's the pastels from last night, the Conti pastel thing, whether it's oil pastels. I still think that's an awesome awesome drawing, or whether it's gouache, watercolor. I've got sort of gouache in here. I'm going to try and pick one out at random without me taking too long to show you. But whether it's gouache, or whether it's, I think there's some watercolors in here as well. There's more gouache things in there. I don't know where the watercolors went to. There were some watercolors, another gouache. Yeah, no idea. I'm pretty sure though. Here we go. Watercolor. It doesn't really matter. It's always drawing. It's always drawing. It's just that's drawing, just like that's drawing. And I think that is probably I've ended up in that place because of my history, but maybe also because of the fact that I'm not tied to any particular medium. I'm not said, so I do a lot of charcoal, but I do a lot of charcoal simply because I like it, first of all, and then because it's practical. I can't like these are practical. They're practical in the sense they don't have to be. There's two things I like about. I'm going to say there's two things I like about these. There's one thing I like and one thing I hate. The one thing I like about these kids' crayons is that you can't smudge them. Right? You can't. They're not. They can stack on top of each other. And you can't smudge it. And the thing I hate about them is that you can't smudge it. So I want to be able to smudge it, but I don't like the idea of it smudging when I put them down. So I'll stack them up. I've done loads of these. You've probably seen them, green and yellow and blue and all sorts of, well, purple. I'm going to do a purple one now. But yeah, this guy. I thought we'd do a beady man. Pinterest, for some reason, now knows exactly what kind of images I'm looking for, and it pops up with all these guys with the beards. So purple we're going for now. Again, this is the same staples. I don't think it's got staples on it. So maybe just get this in something like one of the things that I said this morning about these is this. Ability to make sort of light marks, nothing too dominant. I think, and I probably, it's one of the important things, because you don't want, because I can't get them off, and you've seen me just try and rub off. I can get them off a little bit. You just see me try and get something off. But so ideally, you want to be able to make these light marks so that when they conform to the hierarchy of marks, this thing about progressively getting darker and darker to a point where you don't recognize or see the drawings that you started or the lines that you initially made. And that's kind of the way you got to treat this kind of thing. These the crayons or things that don't allow you to rectify, to fix. Partly that's getting used to the acceptance of wrong marks and appreciate how wrong marks work with doing this because there's a value in the wrongness. I said that before. People don't get that. I've just seen somebody this morning talking about, you're going to embrace the wrongness internally and physically and psychologically. Exactly right. You've got to do that. But the other part to it is that it's not just acceptance of wrong marks. It's a realization that those wrong marks are often what makes what you do special. It's an important part of doing this, the wrongness. But so with this, like I suppose with doing pen and ink, there is an element of you got to accept what's happening. It's going to not look right in certain places. So you got to get used to that and figure out how you're going to come to terms with that. As I said, for me, I would say that as I'm drawing this now, I would say that the importance of wrongness at this stage is that it just tells you where the right stuff is, and if you're not too deliberate with the marks, so they're not sort of, well, it's definitely there. That's where the eyes, that's where the glasses are, and all that. If you're not too definite and making them definite marks, there is room for maneuver anyway. So you can say that that's probably in the wrong place, and that's fine. That's kind of what you want the wrong mark thing to do. As I said before, this thing, what's happening now with me, and you see how kind of it's like how loose it is. It's not really. This is why people confuse it with a scribble, because it's not really a scribble, but it appears to be this because it's a meandering line. But I think scribbles don't have a definite purpose. They're just scribbles, and you just scribble and scribble until it makes it makes whatever it is trying to draw work. The thing is with this, and you'll see it on this one, what people do is they confuse the random marks, the scribbling effect, if you like, with tonal build-up. So it's trying to build the tones. Hatching does that. It's cumulative mark making, and basically you scribble. Mine appear to be scribbles because I hate the linear hatching thing. But that's essentially what people see happening. It's going to be a very it looks like it's a scribbling motion, but in fact it's just identification of the tones. That's all it is. But or it's creating the tones. That's what it is. But yeah, the whole hierarchy thing, which is, as I said, is kind of, see, I came across this when I was illustrating, where I saw people drawing in pen and ink, and then all of a sudden the lines that they started with weren't there, but the definition of whatever the illustration was there. It was right. And what happened is that the hierarchy of marks, basically the more dominant marks, as the pressure increased or the size of the marks increased, or the directness of the marks, as that increased, the accuracy of them, and so on and so forth, then the ones that were inaccurate and just basically scaffolding almost, the preliminary foundational stuff, it just melted away. I couldn't see them anymore. So I came across this back in the day when I was illustrating, when people were making pen and ink drawings were black and white ink drawing, not necessarily rotoring, but there are a lot of people that use rotoring, the fine liner stuff. But I saw this hierarchy of line thing, and it fascinated me, because I'd always, when I did technical drawing at school and then technical illustration at night classes, and it was always about keeping the paper clean and then rubbing off your pencil marks and all that sort of. And when these guys were just drawing straight into it, and then all of a sudden the early marks disappeared. It was just a hierarchy thing, the hierarchy of the marks, the density and the dominance. And that is what this is about, really. It's apart from, as I said, the the wrongness of things, illustrating where the rightness of things are. Apart from that, sorry, I'm just thinking then. Apart from that, the method, you can see it happening now. The method that I use for finding things, for finding the location of things, which is basically exactly the same for everything, which is, well, any dry medium anyway. I can't really do it with wet medium, but it is to find shapes with tone. And it's simply that. So, and then the what I'm doing at the same time is I'm resolving the relationships of both the tone and the physical location and size of the shapes simultaneously. And because it's a progressive thing, as I said with the evolutionary thing, there is a lot of wrongness about it. There's a lot of wrong marks that occur during this process, which is exactly what I want. I don't want to make wrong marks at the end of it. I want the wrong marks to be here, right at this bit, and I'll fix them then. But if I'm waiting until the end to make all the mistakes, then that's when, especially with stuff like this, you're never gonna be able to fix it properly. If I'm waiting until the end, then it's the wrong time to find out you've made mistakes. I think also the tonal aspect of things, because I'm doing, I'm applying the tones now, or I'm building up the tones now. It sort of bypasses that. Somebody this morning was on about they were struggling with the tonal aspects of something because they'd waited till the end to sort the tones out. Well, if you use the tones at this stage to help you define the shapes, you kind of naturally progress the tones to where they want to be anyway. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling thing. It's gonna happen anyway. You know, it's not like you're going to have to wait until the end to work out whether things in the right place, or the tones are right, and all the rest of it. Because you don't need to. It'll happen now. I tell you one thing about these, especially when they're being small like this, I get cramp in my hand because I hold it like that and I'm pushing hard onto it. I don't push with charcoal, not like this. And I noticed that if I do too many of these, my hand, my arm, everything hurts with the having to press so hard. And it's still, I like it. I mean, I still like these things, but as I said, if it becomes difficult to do because it requires this level of pressure and force and all the rest of it, and holding the thing, then I'll not do that many of them. I prefer the charcoal will just flow. This stuff, you have to work at it, and as with the blue one, you see it builds up and builds up, and that's how basically you establish the tones, by just building up the strokes of the wax. But they do require a little bit more effort, a little bit more work for them to. Yeah. One of the things on the workshop that we do is that there's a section on. There's 1 week when we just talk about fearless mark making, and for me, I think one of the best ways to understand about that is to switch to a medium you never used before, and that then all of a sudden you're in a position where you either are terrified by it, and hence the fearlessness that you have to muster, or it just becomes, well, this is not my thing. I'll just have a ball and explore what it can do. So it affects people in different ways, the fearlessness thing. And some people are able to do it, and others are just sort of stuck in their ways. I think also illustrates exactly that. You know, people are stuck in their ways in terms of how they think they should do it. You know, they'll try and use charcoal, that use graphite, and you know, all that sort of stuff. And it just, I think it illuminates an issue, a problem that people might have, and hopefully helps them to overcome it. Because one of the things about particularly with things like this, where it's it requires an amount of commitment to it, you know, confidence in the mark making. The fearlessness thing, you know, that thing about, which it comes from this, I don't care if it works or not kind of attitude, devil may care thing. The fearlessness thing will ultimately improve your drawing. You know, you can't not get better if you're fearless and prepared to make mistakes and accept mistakes and welcome mistakes and recognize mistakes as well. Because that's the other thing. The spending too much time doing this is sometimes a problem for me. If I spend too much time on a drawing, it can be a problem because wood for trees thing. It's like too close to it. I need to, which is sometimes I'll do several at once. I've done 5 and 6 all at once, only because I wanted to have a constant fresh eye. So I was always coming back to whatever I was coming back to, and I'd have a fresh eye. Suddenly, it's like, you know, you leave it for the night and come back to it in the morning and you see something different. It's that kind of thing. So, but the problem that I have is being too close to things and not seeing. They're not really mistakes. They're because the mistakes is sometimes things you need to rectify when they're not really things that need to be rectified. They need to be adjusted in some way, and that you know, it's not quite wide enough, or it's not quite the tones aren't quite right, or you know, something like that. It's not a mistake. And I think the problem is as well that people see mistakes in one part of the drawing, which is often to do with another part of the drawing. You know, because that's quite a common thing. Because of I mean, this is like common sense. I'm going to probably tell you this, and you already know. But if you're looking at something in terms of in relationships, sort of, you know, rather than if it's a comparative thing, you're going to be comparing to one static thing. If it's a relationship approach that you've got, you're going to be comparing everything to everything. So it may well be something that's not anywhere near the element that you're drawing, but it's still impacting on the thing that you're drawing because you're using that as a key, you know, as a reference. So you're looking at the relationship of the hat, the size of the hat to the size of the beard. So you sometimes what appears to be a mistake in a drawing could be just something else that's not quite right. You know, that's throwing your comparison, your relationship comparison. But like I say, you can't. Often you don't see those things. I get locked into certain things. This is why I work at a distance. You know, the distance thing is a big thing for me. If I work too close, it gets all distorted. So if I want to see, you know, distorted in this respect that I can't see proper comparisons, but also in respect that I focus on things too much. So you know, this thing about when only certain things matter. In a portrait, that thing. If I get too close to it, everything starts to matter, and I don't want that. I want it to be only the things that matter that I'll focus on, and by working at arm's length, it gives me that bit of perspective, if you like, in terms of what's important and what isn't. This doesn't really rub it out. It just takes off the surface of it, and there's a kind of a depth in here to this, and it's obviously, you can see it's just a scribbling kind of application, but there's a kind of a depth in there that I need to, because one of the things about beards is you have to create the feeling of volume. It doesn't matter whether or not it follows the same pattern and like hair. It doesn't have to follow the same style and all the rest of it. It matters that you create the right volume, and volume is all about tonal, about the tones, whether it's the darker tones, mid tones, or the highlights. It's all about tones. So that's the only way you're going to create the volume of a beard. But as you can see, it's pretty random in the application side of it. It's not really a following a designated pattern. If you watch Oliver Sin drawing, I think he's done a lesson on drawing beards with John Carrasco, I think his name is, and you can see how he creates patterns in the, like not necessarily following the trueness of the beard, but he creates these patterns within it, which is the same thing. I'm more interested in more of a random kind of effect, but Oliver's more controlled. So this is the thing about working with these. So when I'm drawing a beard like this, there are densities, darker areas, and there are lighter areas to it. And literally, as I'm making these random scribbling marks to create the undulations but I'm pressing lighter and harder, harder and lighter, and it creates the tonal undulance that you see. It sort of varies in its tonality, and all of that is to do with this on-off, pressure on, pressure off kind of thing. Doesn't happen with charcoal. I can't do that with charcoal. I do kind of do that, but the difference would be that I just apply all the tone with charcoal, and then use my fingers to bring in the midtones, the midtones, and then come at it with a rubber to get the highlights in it. But then that's it. That's not, and it's a lot easier than doing this. This is all at once that I'm actually trying to manipulate the tones or render the tones, which is it's more difficult, really. As I said, I am responding directly to it. It's still the lie detector kind of approach, but it's a lot more difficult than when working with charcoal. So just like the charcoal, there comes a point when the things are starting. I mean, I've been using tones all a while to try to establish shapes and things, but there comes a point when it needs to be about the tones, about the values, and I kind of know whether or not the shapes are the right shapes already. It's just a case of refining those things. I think that's probably at the point at which I'm starting to consider, the values and the balance of the tones. It suddenly becomes, as you can see, it starts to work. It suddenly becomes more of a, I can see whether or not it's accurate or not, whether or not it's the things in the right place and so on. But I've got to do that with tones. I've got to. It's only once you apply tone to a shape that it gives it form. So up until that point, it's still an outline that's floating around. And there's the thing with this is there's that a bit like those Conti pencil things. There's an element of drawing about it, about the I don't know what I'm doing now. These things. There's an element of linear drawing in this that I've got to. I've got to, all the sort of things. I've got to balance that with the element of, the tonal reality stuff. It is. I think it's probably peculiar to the way I work and peculiar to the medium as well, I suppose. But there is a sort of a visual balance that I'm trying to capture by looking at both the linear implications as well as the tonal implications. So it's not just about the whether or not it's blended in such a way that it looks like it's round or whatever. There's other things. There's other things that play, and it's like it's a bit of a balancing act, I suppose. But it's not difficult. I'm only just looking at it and deciding. It's just that's all it is. It's not really science of any kind or any rule that you must follow or anything like that. It's just observation. There's also the hierarchy thing as well. I'm just thinking about the hat there. How important is the hat to the face kind of thing? And sometimes there are elements that you draw that are part of the face that really aren't important to the face. I said that before about the hierarchy thing, but there isn't, and it's not the same for every face. It's pretty simple. That if it's the eyes that attract you to a face, then it's the eyes that become the dominant component, and that's the thing that you focus on. If it's the hair, then so on and so forth. So think that's at a point where I can. All that happens now after this, and this is what happened with the blue one as well, as I'll just keep tweaking the tones and moving things around. One of the things on the blue one was the right eye there on our left. That was one of the things that was not representing properly, presenting right, because that's the thing with suggestion application. It has to present in a way that looks right, regardless of how well it's drawn. It's not necessarily about that. It's about the way the shapes are presented, and that's what was happening with the left eye. So it needed to be. You can see it's a lot better now. And drop down. The only problem we've got now is with the nostril there being slightly too dark, and maybe killing some of that. But the left eye, the eye on the left, was not presenting right, and that's kind of what happens with these. So you can see one of the things with this one is his again the eye on the left, and the shape of that needs to be manipulated. And whether or not I can do it just by applying some more depth to it, definite darker marks, I might be able to, rather than it being rubbing it off a little bit and then trying to reshape it a little bit. Don't know yet. It'll just happen. It's not a problem. See that there, the ability to glide across. That's not my peculiar skill. I mean, there is an element of developed skill that I've gone through, obviously, but the fact that these things glide over the surface, it makes it so much easier to do that, right? Then I couldn't do that with charcoal, because I could, but it would be a lot less smooth, and I think that's one of the things that I like about these most is this how it hits the surface. This is what I'm always. Harrison just bought my youngest son, latest iPad, and he draws on it. Not drawing as this is drawing, but for his engineering stuff. And he let me have a go on it, with the Apple Doodah and the pen and whatever. And it's a nightmare. There's no communications between the stick and my hand. It's just gliding over a bit of glass. And I don't know how on earth. I can see some great work done with them. I mean, you can always tell when it's done with a digital device. It's got that, consistent, repetitive brush thing. You know what I mean? When you see someone shading, just charcoal imitations with an iPad, and you can see the repetition of marks. Even no matter what they do, they can never have that unpredictability of marks. No two marks are the same when you're doing it by hand. But with these things, there is not enough randomness in the mark making. But like I say, there's some amazing stuff that people do with it, but I could never do it. I just miss this connection, between. It's like my car, which is an Alfa Romeo, and it's set up for sort of a sports kind of setup with it runs in a sports mode, if you like. And I like the way that I can feel the road through the steering wheel. And before that I had BMWs, and I didn't like the way you could do it. There are sport versions of BMWs, but I didn't like the way it sort of dulled the road. I couldn't feel the road, and I know it's all old stuff now because it's going to be all electric, and whether you can feel the road or not, I've no idea. I wouldn't know. I've never driven an electric one, but it's that tactileness of the of the process. I think it's important. I'm just talking about the flow of this on the paper, the smoothness and the interaction and the flow of it, and how it's different from charcoal. So it's obviously a thing for me. And all the other stuff, the slightly darker, I'm sure that the Apple thing is all set up for exactly that kind of stuff, but you know, if you're talking about 1,600 quid as opposed to a bit of paper and a pencil, it don't make sense, does it? You know what I mean? I know you can store them on in the cloud and all that thing, and you don't have to keep getting your paints out and put them away and tidy up afterwards. I know all about that, but I still reckon that, you know, a pad of paper at a few quid and a few bits of charcoal and or kids' crayons and what have you. And at the end of the day, I struggle to justify spending that kind of money on a thing that I can do just as well without it. You know what I mean? Yeah, but I think I'm just an old fuddy-duddy in that respect. So I'm not right about that. People learn to draw with iPads. So, and I suppose that it's a bit like learning to draw with an automatic. You kind of, you know, you kind of just learn. You know, you learn to do it in that respect. I mean, my car's automatic. I never learned to drive automatic, but I think that's probably the same kind of thing. If you learn to draw with an iPad, I would imagine that picking up a pencil and all the, you know, the resistance and everything else, because that's the thing about this. I mean, this is what I'm talking about with the flow. Resistance is what I'm talking about. So there is no resistance on a piece of glass, you know, or whatever it is that they make the screens out of these days. I think it's got a glass protector on it, so it is definitely glass. But that's completely different to working with a bit of charcoal or a wax crayon on some rough paper or smooth paper. It's just completely different. And in a way, this sounds daft, but when I'm working with charcoal, I feel as though the charcoal's talking to me. That sounds weird, doesn't it? But I do, and I can't imagine this electronic device, this pencil thing, talking to me, you know, as it responds, as it makes the mark, and it does it in a particular way, and I can feel that through my hand, and, you know, all of that stuff. Yeah, as I say, it's difficult for me to get my head around. I did at one point mess about with them and with various bits of software, and just that's it. And the only benefit from that, to be honest, is that when I see people, there's a guy that posts stuff on one of the professional portrait artist things, and yeah, I can see these are paint overs, what they call paint overs, where you basically load up a photograph and just paint over it with a brush, and it mimics Rembrandt or something, I don't know. And I can see that those people are doing that, and calling it art, and even listing what materials they used. So they're only fooling themselves. I mean, the rest of us don't actually know what they're up to. But that's the only, I suppose, the benefit of it is that I've done that and seen how it's done, and not liked it, and basically gave me a different perspective on what I'm doing. And I think it made me more appreciative of this, you know, the simplicity of the medium and so on. It gave me more appreciation for that. Anyway, so that's a purple one. One of the things as well is that, and I said this about the, you know, the build-up of tones that you're able to do with something like this. You know, and as I'm finding the shapes, but with tone, and I'm letting the charcoal. One of the things about with charcoal or with stuff like this, I never, if you notice, it always tends to stop on the paper for a long time. So there's all these other marks, the ancillary marks that are occurring during the process of me wandering all over the page. And it creates, like I said on the other one, it creates some kind of belonging of the thing. You know, it's connected, because there is, from there to there is a line there, and there's a line there, and then the lines that burst out of where I want to be create that belongingness. So it's not a hard and fast line that defines exactly where the corner of the, you know, the edge of the mirror, the glasses are. It's a line that gradually got there, and the ancillary lines around the side of it all really create this sort of belonging feeling about it. So it has that, you know, that look about it, that sketchy kind of pencil drawn look about it. It has that, and it's basically what I'm doing when I'm just leaving the crayon on the paper, or the charcoal on the paper. It's what I'm doing. But those ancillary marks, in this case, because of it being the ancillary marks are just vague marks, it creates its own tonality, which is good. I like it because of that. As I say, I like these things a lot. I draw a lot in these. The thing about these is you could just take them out with you. They don't need sharpening. You just take them with a sketchbook and sit and draw. They don't need sharpening or they're not continually breaking, or to treat them with particular care. You just chuck them in your bag and away you go. So I like them. I like them very much. As I said this morning, they're a great thing to learn to draw with. Anyway, as I say, I'm done now, and I'll edit this and put this up as a proper video, because I think they tend to get more traction when they're real videos and not just lives. But I do them as lives because when I'm talking about things, I like to see it on screen, because I've got it on screen at the side of me. So when I'm talking about stuff, rather than just drawing, I need to see what's happening, so I can say, well, there you go, that's what I'm talking about. But when I'm just doing it without filming it, without playing it live, I drift off, and I don't focus on any particular thing. So I like to do them live, because it just gives me a bit more connection with what the purpose of the video is. So that's why. And I make them videos because the quality of the lives, recording wise, is terrible. You'll notice the sound difference. The biggest one being the sound difference. Somebody mentioned about you should improve the sound if you want to keep doing this, or something like that. He said, right, smart ass, basically. And I know that's why I do them as I say, proper videos, because the recording to the camera is much better audio wise. This is all down to bandwidth, you see, and server space and all kinds of stuff that YouTube are limited to. Anyway, like I say, it's done now, and I'm just going to fix various parts of it. I think the eye is still a bit wonky, and I'm going to get that fixed. It's mainly the size of it, I think. That's the problem. And there's a highlight on the lip there. I'll probably get that back in again. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the big problem, is the size of the eye. I don't know if I can do much about it. I'll try. Yeah, it's all right. It's okay. And then I'm going to just increase the density of stuff like this. The arm of his glasses there a little bit better, now that I'm fairly certain of its location of things. But yeah, eyes a bit better. Still want to just nibble away at that, I think, just to get it a bit more. Alter the shape a little bit more. Right, I'm done. I'm going. I'll catch you in the next one. Probably another crayon one as well. But yeah, purple's good. Blue and purple have worked quite well. You can see the eyes a bit now. But I've got what's the other colours I've got? I've got orange, and then I've got a red one. So I might do the red one just to show you how. I'm not sure about orange. Orange will be almost transparent by the time I finish with it. But the red one might be a good one to do it. So I might do a time with it. I'll do a red one. Let me just finish this off. I want to do a red one.